Good, everybody. Welcome to another podcast episode of Fastest of Knowledge. And as always, we appreciate you listening in. Nice to see you again, Tane. How are you this fine podcast day?
Yeah, good. It's been a busy week, but busy also means good.
Yeah. And in the business, what have you done? What have you done to fill up your knowledge basket knowledge?
I think what I've taken away this week is in one of my lectures, one of my lecturers was talking about how sometimes when we look at a question, we look at it quite closely, but sometimes we don't actually take a step back and realize what it means in terms of the wider surroundings. And I think if you apply that to your life, sometimes we focus on working on small things, but sometimes if it's not in the greater scheme of things going to help that much, sometimes it's better to actually step back and focus on bigger issues that there are in your world, in your circumstances. And so just realizing that sometimes it is good to just take a step back, reflect on what you're doing, and seeing the important stuff you actually are doing is actually more beneficial than just narrowing down and focusing on one thing.
Yeah, that's so awesome, because that can be narrated in any part of life, And I keep saying everyone focuses on the black dot and they forget about the white space. And the same thing happens at university. You focus on the black dot of the question and you actually go, wait a minute, let's step back and go, what are they actually asking? That's a fantastic learning, which I think would get into my learning as well this week, was how quickly humans forget things. So what I mean by that there. So I'm talking about the masks. So it's been interesting for me going into schools this week, because previously everywhere there'll be masks all over the place, which was great. And now some places have no masks, some places have masks. I'm like, wow, we're still in the middle of a pandemic and we've just forgotten, just because we don't have these rules that you have to wear a mask, that you don't wear a mask, but we forget the fact there's actually still stuff happening out there. And it just made me reflect on how often do we just stop doing things because we don't have to do them, but it's still happening in the background. So that was I'm still pondering about that one there, because it puts me in a space like, where are we living in this world? Yeah, there's two parallel worlds at the same time. There's the rule-driven world and there's the world of what we want to live, which is my TED talk for today. But we're not here to listen to me and Tane. We're here to talk to our guests, and as always, we try and bring you some fantastic humans that we have been privileged to get to know. And once again, this week we have a fantastic human zooming into us from Dunedin. Welcome to the podcast, Sonia.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Sonia, for our listeners out there, do you just want to give us a brief outline of what you're doing at the moment and where you're from?
Yeah, all good. So I'm originally from the Kapiti Coast, Wellington, but my parents have just moved to Tauranga. So I guess my home at the moment is Dunedin. And I'm taking a gap year after doing 4 years of study. I did a Bachelor in Performing Arts, and I'm graduating next week with a Bachelor of Arts Honours in Music and Theatre. So yeah, I'm just taking a gap year, getting some downtime, trying to get over that burnout so that I can go into Masters of Teaching and Learning next year.
Awesome. Well, first of all, congratulations. Graduation next week. That's pretty exciting. And I'm
Thank
sure
you.
it's going to be in person, which is awesome. Are your family coming down for that?
Yes, I can't wait to actually have a real graduation where we can go and do the whole parade and the town hall and stuff.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And how crazy time flies. When I met you all those years at school,
Yeah.
if I said to you, you're going to be graduating with what you have at the moment, what would you have said to me?
I would have said, no, I'm not doing honours. There's no way. Absolutely not. No, thank you.
Yeah, because when we're in school, we go, 4 years sounds like a long time at university, but how fast does 4 years fly?
It flies, but it's also so slow in that last year. You just want it to be done.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a bit of a grind, eh? It's a bit of a grind.
Yes.
But it's awesome, because when I met you at school, your goal was performing arts. That was what you wanted to do. And it's very rare for us. When I say very rare, it's rare for someone to do what they want to do at school and follow that right through. Lots of people change their mind. So when you were at school, why do performing arts attract you? What is your jam around performing arts at high school?
I was that classic theatre kid in high school, doing all the shows, all the extracurriculars. It was just my way of fitting in, I suppose, but it's where I felt most at home. And I just remember thinking like, oh, what's something practical to do? Like, should I be an English teacher or whatever? Because teacher was something that I wanted to do, but I wanted to give this a go and see like, actually, can I do some performing arts? Am I good enough in this area to try it out? Should I get a whole degree in it? Is that going to do anything for me? Can I even do anything with the degree? And yeah, I kind of went for it, and it's been a lot more than I ever expected it would be.
In a good way or in a bad way?
In a really good way.
Yeah.
The Bachelor of Performing Arts is a really good like standing point where you learn a whole lot of different information, but then going into honours, it was specialising for me. So I do musical theatre, singing, but I've also branched out and I've started doing directing in theatre. So I'm now a professional director, and doing musical theatre singing is not so much a hobby, but just another colour of that for me.
How awesome is that? From taking part in shows all those years ago to actually now creating your own shows. What an awesome story. But when we go back to high school and you told your family and your friends that, hey, I'm going to go be doing, when I finish school, I'm going to be doing performing arts, what was the reaction?
My parents, particularly my dad, was like, yeah, called it, knew it, figured you'd just go for it. My siblings and I were all girls. We were just all very driven to do what we wanted, and no one else was going to stop us. So it was very predictable that I was both going to Otago and that I was going to do performing arts, because it was very obvious from the beginning that I wanted to do something at least music wise. So yeah.
And what about your friends? Did your friends go, oh, why are you doing performing arts? That's not going to get you anywhere. The whole stereotypical, why aren't you doing something that's
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, you get it from everyone. You get it from like a mix of younger people all the way to like grandparents being like, so what kind of job do you want out of that? No, my friends are actually more upset that I was leaving Wellington than that I was doing performing arts. But like whatever, you just go where it takes you. And I didn't want to be stuck at home like they were. So
awesome. And so you landed in Dunedin. What is the biggest thing for you leaving home? I mean, was it excitement? Was it a bit of a shock? What did you feel like?
A bit of both. Dunedin as a city represents a lot of freedom for me. I know I'm 22, so I should just be like an adult and normal now. But there's still a sense of when you're a student, you're still kind of in an in-between stage of growing. And the move for me was scary because I hadn't done it before, and I was nervous that it wasn't going to be the right place for me. But it's been so good for me to move away and be on the other side of the country to my parents. Even though I love them, like I like having this city where I can do whatever I want and they'll never hear about it, which is so funny.
What a troublemaker. Because again, for context, for those of you that are listening from around the world, Sonia comes from the Kapiti Coast, which is about a very small place in relation to other places around the world. And I guess you don't really have a lot of privacy or freedom. People talk.
No, you'd walk along and anyone could see you. It's only an hour out of the capital city. So yeah, everyone knows.
Brilliant. So when you arrived in Dunedin, you were okay, cool, a bit nervous, but hey, I'm pretty excited as well. What was that first year like for you as a young person now, living away from home, exploring these different options that life presented you, I guess, at this point?
It was incredible. I went to Carrington College, as you know, and it was an excellent hall of residence. I met a lot of science students, which was not who I would work with, but that's fine. Just meeting friends and exploring, like you try the whole town scene and see if that's something that you like, but it's also doing extracurriculars and finding what you enjoy to do away from high school and your parents and old friends and things, and becoming this new person, I suppose, that's free to do whatever. So for me, it was amazing. Even just like some memories of being in the hall of residence, and at night time I would initiate, let's go do spotlight. And because Carrington is surrounded by bushes and things, it was very easy to do that and then scare the security guards from high up in a tree. So yeah, it was pretty incredible for me.
I can see why you want to escape from your parents, because you're a bit of a troublemaker there, scaring security guards. Totally. And you said that you want to try new things. What is one new thing that you tried in your first year that you hadn't tried before?
I actually started taking tap dancing classes. It was something that I didn't get to do as a kid, and it didn't go very far, but I can say I've done it now. But it was always like I had a choice between doing orchestra or dancing as a kid, and I was definitely more orchestra instrument focused. So something random.
And did you keep up your musical playing when you were at university, or did that now change in terms of its importance?
Less. Like I started, so I play clarinet as well as doing singing, so it was less, but I actually found that in some obscure papers that I did in performing arts, one of the teachers would find out that I previously played clarinet and to quite a high level, so I could just kind of adapt and do whatever with it, and you don't really lose that even after not practicing a whole lot. So I actually used my clarinet in some assessments, which was so awesome that I got to do that because it's expensive, and I brought it all the way down here, and I want to use it, but I've kind of put my orchestra days away. So yeah, it was really cool to keep that going in some small forms.
Brilliant. It's awesome that you have lecturers who identify that's a skill set you have, and not to actually encourage you to use that in your production, I guess, as opposed to going, hey, that was you in the past, let's not think about that. But actually, like you said, it is part of your life. It is part of who you are. And Tana, has that been something that's popped up for you as well? Because you've been a big sports player, rugby's been your jam, but you've also taken a bit of a back step from that for a little bit. How have you found that?
It's been challenging. I have had a few moments this year where I do want to get back into it, but there's been a couple of friends and people I know who have offered to let me go and play if I do want to get back into it, which is exciting. But also with like sevens this year or coaching capacities, to look at it at a different light. And I think it's about trying a different side of the sports that I enjoy, because I don't know if I would be willing to commit to the trainings again as much as I probably would, and I would do it to a high standard. I think I've passed that time where I put a lot of effort into my rugby, and that's probably a consequence of doing it for pretty much all my high school days, and making like reps and stuff. But it's still exciting that I can take that skill set that I learned at an early age and actually apply it in a different setting, and knowing from an athlete perspective, what works, what doesn't work, and just trying to give people more encouragement around having fun, because I think that's something that is often missed and is often the main thing that keeps people in sport.
Yeah, and I guess that's with everything. Fun is important. I'm sure, Sonia, when you were doing your stuff, fun was an important factor of your clarinet time as well. Even though you have to go to the lessons and stuff, the fun would have got you through, right? At some point, it just transcends.
Yeah. If the fun's not there, you don't want to do it. It's not motivational for anyone.
Yeah.
So
that's another thing in life, right? If you don't enjoy it, then why would you do it? It becomes a struggle. Yeah. From playing clarinet to playing rugby to actually your job as well. If you don't enjoy your job, then motivation just disappears pretty quickly. So after your first year, you now went flatting. What is flatting like for you? Because you're obviously living in a hall. It's freedom, but it's secure freedom. And then you have real freedom. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I suppose you look at the hall and it's like you're being babysat by older students, and now all of a sudden you're in a flat. Flatting for me is really good. I really enjoy it. I like the freedom of being able to cook my own meals and not adhere to eating at 5:30 in the afternoon, which is really early. But at the same time, you have the issues of, okay, I've never lived with this person before. I've only ever lived in a hall of residence and then with my parents. So it's learning about how other people operate, and everyone has different systems, like with cleaning with cooking, with what they think is acceptable in the flat and what's not. So fights come up. You obviously you need to pick your group really carefully. And for me in second year, my group was really difficult. So I often just lived at my boyfriend's house, which was basically an igloo, but that's fine. It worked out.
Crazy. Yeah, and it's important that you mention that because this is humans. We think you know somebody, but until you actually living with them, you don't know who they actually are. And like you said,
Yeah.
when you're living in a hall, or when you live in an artificial environment, you see the best of people and you don't see the worst of people. Well, not the worst, the other side of people, I guess. And when you start living with people, you go, oh, wait a minute, this is who you actually are. Because all of us live with masks. When we live in a place, we have all our masks. We try and present our best self. And when you're living with someone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, those masks disappear pretty quickly. What was there a mental challenge for you with this as well, or was it just a hey, I've gotten over this and I have a solution, go and live with my boyfriend and become a Eskimo essentially?
It was definitely a mental challenge at first. For me, I got really sick towards like the end of first year, and going into second year, I had surgery, and then I was like trying to study really, really full time because I had failed a paper the previous year and I had to make up for what I had missed. But I also had some really crappy flatmates that wanted to claim that actually I wasn't that sick and nothing was going on, and you just hear them talking shit about you like right outside your door or down in the kitchen, and it wasn't fun. So mentally at first, yes, it was straining, and then when my boyfriend said like just come live with us, like not necessarily permanently but just come hang out whenever you want, it was a really great change because he lived with one other guy friend of mine, and the two of them were a mess. They didn't know how to cook, they didn't know how to clean. I came in there and like sorted them out, but at the same time there were just so many funny things going on. Like the flat was appalling, no human should live in there, and we found out that their hot water cylinder was leaking the whole year, so it was so damp, it was so cold, their power bill was huge, like
Oh wow.
so many things going wrong. But I can honestly say that that year was one of the most fun flatting years I've ever had, because living with those two guys on and off was just, it was ridiculous. Every day was a new weird thing going on.
Oh, brilliant. I look forward to the book. You write the book about it. Be great. And
Oh gosh.
you mentioned your health, and I remember this because you used to communicate with me quite a bit then. Well, not a bit, a little bit. What do you want to talk about your health? What happened? Was it something that happened while at university? Was it something that was ongoing?
It was a really random thing. So it would have been August 2018 when I was in first year. I remember going out to BYO with my friends, and we were all drinking wine and stuff. And then 2 weeks later, I was in hospital. I was in like ridiculous amount of pain. I got pancreatitis, which is like a inflammation of your pancreas, but it also stretches to like your gallbladder and sometimes your liver. It kind of just attacks all the organs, which is super fun. So I struggled with that for about 8 months because Dunedin Hospital wanted to do everything but take out my gallbladder, which is usually what would help. It's really difficult to get imaging, and it has to be the perfect timing to see everything. So I was always in and out of hospital from about August, and then in February, just before I turned 19, I went back into the hospital, and it had gotten to the point where they literally couldn't poke a needle in me anywhere because everything was fried.
Wow.
And they found out I had pancreatitis again, and they were like, okay, we're worried that this is going to be like permanently damaging for you, so we're going to take it out. And 2 days later I managed to get in. So it was quite a time. And like I had after effects of this where my liver was deciding to quit on me, and then I got pancreatitis again a year and a half after my surgery, which is ridiculous. It shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And like I apparently if I get pancreatitis, I'm at constant risk of multi-organ failure.
Oh wow.
But it hasn't happened in like over a year now. So I don't know. We're just hoping
But
that it's
yeah,
just kind of gone.
yeah, we
I
hope
don't
so
know.
too.
We'll see.
We hope so too. And what is that like for you and your family? Because your family were away from you and you were down here. What is that like? I mean, yeah, because you're living your life, but boom, this comes along and disrupts that. How do they feel about it?
Yeah. Oh, they were definitely like upset about it, but
Yeah.
because they live so far away, it was more me depending on my friends at the time. And I was a month into my relationship that I'm still in today. And I was literally like to my boyfriend, like, here's your out. This is ridiculous. Like, we're a month into this and I can't even like move. My arms are dead with needles and all sorts. And I had my friend like brushing my teeth and feeding me and stuff.
Wow.
So my family were like understandably upset, but my new family of friends kind of helped me through, I suppose. And like I had my mum down one time to go like angry mum mode and yell at the surgeons to do something, and it didn't help. It just made me annoyed, and I didn't have time or energy to be annoyed at her. So I don't know. I kind of got them to take a step back, and I told them that if I needed something, like I'd let them know. But yeah, there wasn't much that anyone could do, so it was kind of just learning to deal with it on my own. And I think that's a huge growing thing for me as well that I did do on my own.
Yeah. I have to acknowledge the fact that you actually decided to take ownership of it yourself. You know, lots of people like to depend. I mean, it's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just an observation that you make where people depend on others a lot, and especially their family
Yeah,
sometimes. And it's awesome that you would actually, wait a minute, this is something we have to deal with while I'm here in Dunedin with people that are around me, as opposed to mom and dad coming down every weekend. So that's a
yeah,
fantastic acknowledgement. And like you said, it's growth. It is growth.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
and I'm glad that you're okay at the moment. Glad
Thanks.
yeah. Tanya, what about you? Have you had any times when you have felt that you were under the weather or just not feeling it, and mom and dad were like, "Hey, Tanya, we're worried about you."
Um, Probably more so from like a psych well-being point of view. I haven't really had any major illnesses down here other than like a cold or change in weather kind of sickness. But yeah, more like psychological when I get underwhelmed or overwhelmed with all my assignments. And then just talking to mum and dad. Usually mum will know because I haven't called her in a week. Then she starts to worry, so she'll ring and just make sure everything's all right. But she doesn't mind. She understands, and that's usually the case. So usually she'll just reach out and make sure that everything's all good and that I don't need anything. So it's good to have that support, and especially knowing that it's still there, you know, because sometimes, as we've said, I think on the previous podcast, you know, sometimes you think those support structures aren't there because you're so stuck in your own world and this is only me in this journey. But there's actually those people outside you who can support you and will support you when they need to. You know, they don't have to be there all the time, but when they are there, they make the biggest impact.
That's very true. And I guess for you, Sonia, your parents were there, but also your friends came in, and your boyfriend. Let's talk about that. You know, 1 month in, and be like, holy smokes, I didn't sign up for this. And you know, it's pretty awesome
Yep.
that he is still with you. And you know, because a lot of people will be like, holy, what's going on here? This is pretty crazy, especially at that age. You know, when we're
Yeah.
immature and we're just looking for different things in our lives, and we go, oh, this is too tough for me to handle. So that's kudos to him as well. Kudos to him as well.
Totally.
Yeah. So you go through this little battle, this health battle here, and then you go into third year. What is so now you're starting to find your feet as a I guess as a student. You found your jam. What was third year like for you in terms of not just living but also studying?
Um, Third year was grind, 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 go, go, go. Figure out what it is that you want to do. I took a tech paper, like theatre tech paper in second year, and I met some advanced directing students which is like 400 level honors level, and they became really good friends with me and talked to me about what they got to do, and I got really interested in that. And so I actually approached the head of theatre and some like head of music people and started talking about honors as an option. I'd never thought of this before. So going into third year, it was getting all the requirements for honors, getting B plus in absolutely everything, because there's 4 different areas of my degree and you can't really stray a whole lot from doing those papers because of the requirements to get your 360 points to get your degree. So the flexibility of my degree was, there wasn't much flexibility. I took maybe 2 or 3 papers that were different out of my whole degree, but everything else was performance, music, or theatre. There was a dance option, but I was terrified of that and didn't want to go for it. So yeah, it was definitely grinding for third year, making sure that I was getting everything done. I was doing like a barista job over the summer, so I quit that so that I could just like hone in and focus on what I was doing. And by the very end of it, it was like quickly take a breath and then straight into honors the next year. So it was a lot, but it was amazing. It was my biggest year with 8 papers, and only one of them was a 200 level. Everything else was 300.
Oh wow. Can you remember the conversation that you might have had that switched your thinking to go, hey, honors might be something I wanted to do? What is that moment there, if you can remember it?
I remember talking to the head of theatre, and I said to her, hey, I'm actually interested in doing honors. And I hadn't seen or talked to her since first year when I was sick, and I happened to pass one of her papers without sitting the exam. And she was seemingly quite pissed off about that because she wanted me to do everything, and I dropped another one of the papers, and she was still like head of theatre at this time. So I think she was annoyed that I was slipping through the cracks and I was managing to pass these things without putting in as much effort as everyone else, and without being given extensions or anything. So when I approached her, she was like, oh, I don't think you're good enough for this. Go talk to the music department and see if you want to do honors with them. And I did. And they were like, absolutely, do it. Come here. Like, we'll help you. And so I set up my whole year for music honors. And then once I hit second semester in 300 level and I started doing the directing paper in theatre, I was like, no, I really want to do directing. Like, I'm set on this. I don't want to have to write a dissertation, and advanced directing is instead of a dissertation because of the high workload in it. So I went back to her and I said, like, look, you're just going to have to deal with it. I've got the grades. I've got the papers. I can do it. I'm doing half and half. And I got the grades, and she ended up actually like hugging me at my graduation ceremony, mini graduation ceremony in 2020. And I looked at my mum, she looked at me, and we were just like, bitch, like, told you I could do it.
How awesome is that? When someone tells, and this is for listeners out there, many times people are going to tell you can't do it, and you take 2 options, right? You either go, cool, I'm going to listen to them, I'm not going to do it, but hey, you obviously didn't do that. And was there a, forget about the grades and stuff, was there a satisfaction in terms of like, damn, this is
yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, it was amazing finishing third year and finishing my degree and thinking like, oh my God, I actually got through this. Like, I can do this. And going into honors on such a high, and then seeing this teacher again, and she actually has respect for me now that I have a degree and that I proved her wrong. So maybe, I mean, I've talked to some other teachers about it and other students, but maybe she was trying to push me and provoke me so that I would do better. But I don't know. I think it's all on me. I did it. So like,
exactly, it's all on
whatever.
you. Own that, exactly. Own that. Whatever. Yeah, she said no, and you said I'll show you. So well done,
totally.
you. Yeah. mucho respect for that, and I'm really proud of you for doing that there. And then so now
Thanks.
you get this high, you're like, boom, bring it, and then you have this beast of honors waiting for you. What is that like for you?
Um, it was essentially the unknown. I had no idea what it was going to be like. Even in the first month or so, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. There was just no direction. It was completely different to undergraduate. So I wasn't really attending classes. I didn't have a full idea of all my assessments. I didn't know when they were due. I didn't know what they entailed. Like, it was terrifying to say the least because I just had no idea what was going on. And I got to the point where, because I was doing half music, half theatre, I met with each of my supervisors and said, like, help me. I have no idea what's going on. They're like, you just run the show. Cool. Thank you. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly? What does that mean? Wow, isn't that crazy? Because you go from structure, and you think you've got your degree, like boom, I've got my degree. This is it, and then you're like, actually, wait a minute, I know nothing. I know
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're thrown into the deep end
yeah,
completely.
yeah. And how did you navigate that? So you know, you go run the show, Sonia. What happened then?
Um, I okay, so I kind of compartmentalized. There was this one paper that was a complete mystery to me, and I shouldn't have done this, and this wrecked me at the end of my honours degree, but I kicked it to the curb. I was like, stuff you, paper. I'm going to look at you in maybe like June, but it's March right now, so let's not think about that. I'm just going to focus on advanced directing and my music paper. So I started designing like a plan for my music and like looked at what I wanted to do because you had to do proposals for each of the papers before going into it. So I went back to my proposals and went, okay, this is what I proposed. Is this still something I want to do, or should I change my proposal? And kind of just like focusing in on, okay, this is what I want to study, and then going to the teacher and saying, is this right? Is this kind of like what I should be doing at honors level, or is this still only 300 level? And there is a really big jump. They tell you about how big the jump is between 300 and 400 level. And it only becomes clear when you start doing assessments and you're getting your grades back and you're wondering, like, before that, whether you're going to get like an A or whether you're actually only a C or even below. And it became clear to me in my first advanced directing assignment, where I did a 8 to 10 minute piece with one actor, and I got an 86, and I was like, okay, cool, we're good. I think I'll be fine. It's chill.
Well done, well done. So now you
Thank
had
you.
this, you from the unknown. So, okay, I've got this. You spoke about the paper that you kicked to the curb. How did that come back to bite you?
Yes. Holy moly. This paper seriously chewed out a piece of me. Like, it was so bad. I don't know if you recall, but last year we had that lockdown period around like
August,
August,
yeah, yeah.
September. So I was directing a full-blown show at that point. My music paper was in session, and this paper was still sitting there. I had done I had done one project with it, and the project was it was really good in the end. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I basically it's a devised theatre paper, and devising theatre means you create theatre from scratch, from absolutely nothing.
Oh wow.
So you do research into like what kind of devising methods to create said theatre. And I did pretty much an installation where the audience walked into this room, and in the room we had set up so many different spaces, and we had it on like a time loop of my project, and I was really proud of it in the end. It was really fun to do, really fun to watch, and people could just wander around and choose what they were watching, and I had 4 actors doing things, and it was all around a theme, and it was really cool. So that was going really well. I did that. I did my write up for it, and then it kind of just sat there again. And I got to this lockdown and I was bawling. I was in tears. I had no idea what to do. I was panicking. It was September by this stage, or end of August. And I had my play due in 2 weeks. I had my music assessment the week after. And then it was basically a whole lot of exegeses and write-ups and things, and that was all due. But before that, I had to create a whole nother project. I had no idea what it was, and I didn't even know if I did well in the other one because this paper was like 100% internal base.
Oh, wow.
So you did a write-up for it, but you don't get your grade until you've actually finished the paper. So it was like a 100% mark. I had no idea. I didn't even know if I did well. They didn't give me any feedback because they said that wasn't the way they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do that till the end, and I was like, oh my god. So I Zoom called my lecturers. I had like a supervisor and then a secondary supervisor for this paper, and I tried to hold it together the whole time. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I think I'm about to fail honours. I'm really sorry I've disappointed you.
Oh, wow.
I'm super behind in my paperwork. I haven't done a whole lot of research at this end of the year. What do I do? And I just remember my teachers were like, okay, let's make a plan. And we did that. And then afterwards, my other teacher was like, Sonia, I want to show you something, but it's quite strange. So just prepare yourself. And she puts a photo up on the Zoom screen, and it's like 3 giant vases with people in them, and just their heads are showing. And she was like, you see that middle one? That's me. And she's just showing me this thing where she had a performance. It was 9 minutes long. She did 3 of them a night, and she stood in a vase, and that was the whole performance. And she said that theatre could be anything and that I would be fine. And that's what I remember from that weird Zoom.
Wow. Isn't it crazy what stands out for you? Like, you know, in life, you have these amazing teachers, amazing people in your life that'll teach you some stuff, but it's the most abstract thing that actually hits home.
Yeah.
You know, obviously that was the most abstract thing, like, okay, cool. And obviously that must have just been, all right, I can do this now. Well, I don't know, maybe you started crying like, oh no, I've got to find a vase now. This is all good.
No, it was really good. I think I found it so funny at the time. It got me out of like this scary place where I knew that I had a plan and somewhere to go off. And I just went out and told all my friends who did theatre with me that Hillary was in a vase every night for 9 minutes at a time. And they were like, oh my god, do you have a photo of it? And I said, no, I was too nervous to screenshot it because it would probably come up as a notification on the Zoom if I screenshotted it. So it's just something that no one else will see, but apparently I get to see.
Brilliant. And that's important, because I think, you know, when you have this relationship with people in your lives, whether it's a lecturer or someone that's your mentor, that they feel comfortable sharing that with you. That's an acknowledgement that, hey, they see something in you, even though you don't. Because at that time you said, you were like, hey guys, sorry to disappoint you. It was not even about you, it was about them. You were trying to satisfy them.
Yeah, totally.
And they don't actually care about that, because they're actually here for you. But we never see that, do we? You know. Well, especially in our darkest times. So you did this. Tell us about your production. I mean, how was that for you when you got it done and was all over? How did you feel?
It was so crazy. It was very fun, but I remember we had what's called a tech week, where your shows are at the end of that week, and the 3 days leading up, you have tech nights every night from 5 till 10. And on the Tuesday night we had a dress rehearsal, and I shit you not, we got out of that theatre at like 12:30.
Oh wow.
And I'm just like 12:30 a.m.
Yeah.
And it was the most fun experience. I remember we did a run through and I go backstage and the actors are like, no, we can do better than this. Like, we want to impress you, Sonia, as our director. Like, we know we can do this better. And I go back down to my theatre manager and I'm like, they want another run through. I know that you weren't prepared to do this, but what do you think? And he said, yeah, let's do it, but everyone needs a break. And we got the whole cast. The cast was like 6 people plus all these tech members that we had as well, like designers and tech operators and things. And we stuff ourselves into 2 cars and we have a drag race to McDonald's because we have half an hour to get food, come back, eat it, and then get on stage and set things up. And I remember my friend was driving and we had 2 scared first years in the back seat. They'd never experienced anything like this. And the car that we were versing was in front of us. And my friend was like, oh, damn it. And she cuts right through a roundabout on like a small road. She cuts right through it and we zoom ahead in front of them and we managed to get there before them. And it was so funny. I just remember like looking back and the 2 girls in the back are just like screaming as we run through this roundabout. It was very cool, but after the show it was definitely like oh my gosh, this is done. Like, you get a little bit of like post-show blues where you want it to still be a thing. And we did it would have been 4 shows in the end and they just went absolutely amazing. I couldn't have asked for anything more, but afterwards it was definitely sad and we had the after party and things, but it was definitely like oh my god, now I have to write up all this stuff and it's no longer practical work. Like, this is done. This is it.
It's crazy. It's all, I think that's the case with a lot of things. You know, you have the grind, you have the laughter and you have the tears and the grind, and then it happens and you're like, oh, this is amazing. So you're here and then you're like, oh no, it's over. Just, you know, just and you know, and that happens with a lot of things, but especially when you have to start writing about it, which is like, it takes away the fun element out of what you've actually done, because you now actually have to become academic about it again.
Yeah, that's the worst.
At the start, you mentioned burnout. So how did you identify that actually I'm burnt out? Because it's very hard, you know. We had a guest a few weeks ago and they mentioned the same thing as well, that they suffered burnout, but it took them a long time for them to figure that out. And ironically, they're also from the Kapiti cast.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yes, ironically. It must be the waters there. But anyway, so how did you identify that? What is the indicator for you?
There was definitely a build-up of things. There was a lot going on in 2021. Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah.
And I think the moment where I figured it out was after I handed in all of my written work. I had 4 different assignments due at the same time, and it was rough. They were humongous written assignments. It's basically like writing a dissertation at the end, but you do it within a very small gap of time that you shouldn't have done it within a small gap of time. And it's one of those things where I kicked it to the curb and then it really chewed out of me again. So I suppose right through the year, all these little things that went wrong or that caused me more stress for a period of time really struck me after I finished my honours, because we had these things within my papers where each paper required me, apart from my music one actually, to write a journal every week, multiple times a week.
Yeah.
Now imagine this. I didn't do it until like the last 2 weeks of honours. It was so bad. I moved up to Tauranga. I had moved out of my flat. I was staying with my boyfriend's parents before my parents moved up there, because they're all based around there. And I stayed up for 4 days straight doing honours. 4 days. I remember every morning my boyfriend's dad would come out and say, "So, how's it going?" And I said to him, "I fell asleep for 2 hours." He said, "Did you do anything?" And I said, "No." And it was just like every morning asking me that. I ended up handing in the assignment late, but because I was in Tauranga and because I was in constant communication with my lecturers, they allowed it for some reason. And like my directing teacher was really chill about deadlines. So, you know how they would, like, you'd hand in an assessment and they'd say it's due at 11:59, 1 minute after, and you lose 5%.
Yeah.
This was not the case with this lecturer.
Oh, great.
Like, all my assessments were due at midday generally. And even if I handed it in at 5 o'clock, like a few days later, you'd see him stroll into the office and grab the assignment. And you're like, what the hell? You didn't know? Okay. That's fine.
I'm not going to tell you. Yeah.
Not, of course not. I wouldn't admit. But I'd ask my other friend who's doing honours with me, because it's a small course. So there was literally 2 of us in one of my classes. And I'd be like, "Have you done the assignment? I just handed it in at 12. And he's like, oh, I'll hand it in tomorrow. Ryan's not going to notice." And he doesn't notice. And it's just ridiculous. It's so funny, but it was frustrating towards the end, because like my friend would hand in things later than me. And then that time at the very end of my honours, I handed it in later than him because I had to post it as well. And when you finish it at like 10 a.m. and you're trying to post it, but you have to print everything out as well. And we're talking like, there was so many pages. Holy moly, I killed several trees that day, and I would have rather not. It was bad. It was very bad. Don't recommend it.
Oh, crazy. So you go kill Burnout, done, take a break for a year, but you want to go study teaching. What's up with that? Tell us what's going on there. when did the shift? Have you always wanted to be a teacher, or was there something that came up at some point?
I have always wanted to be a teacher. This is something that has been a plan since high school, and I delayed it because I wanted to do honours.
Yep.
So I always thought, okay, I'm going to do bachelor's and then I'm going to do master's. But when that changed, it was like, okay, bachelor's, honours, and then straight into master's. And the master's is January to December.
Yep.
So no, when you're burnt out and when you don't want to do any work and you've just finished your honours, absolutely not. You do not want to do a month off, essentially, or 2 months off, and then straight into a master's course. So yeah, I got to the point where I didn't want to go to uni. I didn't want to see the department anymore. I didn't want to be associated with theatre or music or anything. I just wanted to be a human being that lived in Dunedin and like just lie down and chill. But masters was something that I wanted to do. And so what I've done is I thought, okay, if I do a gap year and it's just 1 year where I earn some money, because masters have placements and that also costs for like accommodation stuff. They don't give you money for these things. So if I earn some money, then I can feed my shopping addiction for clothes, which is perfect. And then I can get a cat, which I did. And I wanted to travel, but obviously COVID's still not allowing that so much. But the plan is, hopefully, if I can save up enough money right before I start masters, I'll go overseas somewhere, even if it's close by. Just go somewhere, because I had a trip booked for Greece in 2020 and it never happened. But masters is just, it's something that I want to do, but I don't want to put off for too long. But I needed to put off for my mental health and for my physical well-being. And taking care of myself.
It's important to recognize that as well, that by taking a gap year, it's actually not even a gap year, it's just you looking after yourself. You're looking after yourself and you're, hey, this is actually quite cool. There's nothing wrong with this year. And like you said, you just wanted to just enjoy being a human. You're not a student, you're not chasing grades, you're not chasing goals, you're not chasing deadlines. You're just gonna go, hey, I can wake up when I want to, I can get a cat and become a cat mom, and that becomes your jam. And and that might give you a different perspective when you go into your master's program. And I empathize with that, because I went straight from my undergrad into my honors, into my master's, into my PhD, and that basically destroyed me at the end. And nobody tells you that you shouldn't do that, because no university is going to say no, don't do it, because they want students, right? And to anyone that I tell, I was like, you should always just take a gap in between those, especially when you're jumping into those postgraduate programs. I mean, it's not for everybody, but I think it's a good time for you just to stop, reflect, and actually think about what you really want to do, and also think about yourself, because it's as you start getting higher up, the journey becomes more and more lonely, because it's all about what you want to do. Even though you have a cohort, it's about you. So you've got to make sure you look after yourself. So it's awesome that you've got that awareness, but it's also awesome that you have a support there that allows you to do that there, because you can't do things by yourself. And Tanya, I think this is where you are at the moment, because you're about to finish your program, and listening to Sonia today, and also the other people that you've spoken to, it's going to give you some things to reflect about as you think about what happens next.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I'm still weighing up that decision of whether I do honors, whether I take a break and, go and work and use my degree in some capacity, or what I'm doing. So I'm still trying to figure out what I enjoy. And I think the good thing about this year is I've been able to do practicum, which allows me to go and actually apply my degree in different settings. So looking at what I might enjoy, whether that's teaching, whether that's helping students, whatever it is. But I think it's also been good because it's shown me that some things that I thought I would be interested in, I actually am not. Like, for example, I thought I'd be interested in the strength and conditioning side of things, but after doing the paper this semester, it's not actually something I enjoy, because I just think, when we think about the number of sets or the number of times people train a week, it's not actually crucial unless you're a high performing athlete. And for me, what I'm passionate about is getting the masses to just be involved with physical education, not necessarily having the few elite, the top 1%, perform at a higher level. So for me, that's been something interesting that I've acknowledged this year.
Which goes into both of you, because your values, it's all value driven, right? Your values are very different. Some people's values are like, I want to work with the best. And for the both of you, I mean, to become a teacher and to work with community, the value is not about working with the elite. It's about helping or working with a lot of people. So I think a lot of people forget, when you're at school, people say to you, oh, choose your favorite subjects and blah 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 blah. Is it the way to go? But I think it should be your values. What are your values? Because that's going to help you get to that end goal, whatever that end goal looks like. And the more and more I work in my schools, I talk about that as like, think about your values. What is your driver, as opposed to where do you want to work? Because the two could be totally polar opposites. Sonia, so thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic gap year, and hopefully you get to travel somewhere exciting. I mean, you might even go watch Chelsea Football Club play. Well, we won't talk too much about that there, because that's a controversial topic there at the moment. And when you think about your journey, what is the highlight? What has been the highlight for you?
That's a difficult one, because there's been so much.
Yeah.
I think the highlight for me was definitely branching out and trying out directing, trying and seeing if that was something that I could do. And a lot of it was driven by, I want to be a teacher. So when you talk about values, it really chimes with me, because a lot of people who do performing arts, when you start pursuing it, they treat you as if you're in the industry, and sometimes you have to pull them up and say, like, actually, I'm not doing this for myself, or I'm not doing this so that I can boost my image and whatever, but I'm actually doing this to get experience for a real life job that I really want, that will help people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in my area don't understand that, because it's not to say that they're all selfish and horrible or whatever. They're lovely. A lot of them are lovely, but they don't understand why I'd want to go into teaching, because a lot of the time it's a cop out. But for me, it was like, no, this is like actually what I want to do. I want to work with kids. I want them to know that doing performing arts isn't a backup or a hobby, but it's something that they can thrive and do. And I want to be a teacher so that I don't see other people kicking down other students for their passion, because teachers have a lot of influence on even the mental well-being of their students, and one wrong thing could damage them, but one good thing could mean everything to them. So I guess I want to be someone that could help a student find their way, because I've had teachers that have done that for me, and I want to be able to do the same for someone else. So yeah, I think the highlight has been advanced directing.
That's so beautiful. I love how you said you joined a program. Sorry, I'm just going to try and get my thoughts here. You're doing a program not to get a job in the program, but to use the skill sets to develop your values. And that is so profound, because you use the word cop out, and I think this is quite crazy when people think, oh, teaching is a cop out. It's like, actually, teaching is probably the most it's the most rewarding and the most influential job. Every single young person in the world goes through a teacher. Doesn't matter where they are in the world. And like you said before, if a teacher can either make or break a young person depending on their mindset and their values. So I'm really proud of you, and your motivation there is really fantastic. So we've with the highlights. Let's go to the yin and yang. What has been the lowest point for you in this journey? And it doesn't have to be study, it can be anything in the last 4 years or last 5 years.
There's been lots of low points. Not to say that these last 4 or 5 years have been absolute shit. Like they've been really great in so many ways. But I suppose for me, it's getting through everything. It's the university side, but it's also the health side and just everything else that mixes and mingles in between that. So I suppose my lowest moment or moments was getting surgery and then discovering, like, actually I really need some therapy now, and going through that for about 10 months, where I'd had to admit to some random person that I wasn't okay at that time, and I was trying to figure out how to be okay, and then growing from there and knowing like that I can do it on my own, and if I want to go back to therapy at any time I can, because I've done it before. But it's going to therapy for that first time that was really low for me, because it's embarrassing telling some stranger about like all your faults and fears and like what your mind does to you and how it plays tricks on you and all sorts.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge you for that, because it's really hard to do that. I mean,
absolutely,
we all know about how the mental health crisis is around the world, actually. And that first step is the hardest step, because the first step is you actually acknowledging that things are not okay. There's nothing wrong with you, it's just things are not okay. And like you said, acknowledging that is basically the confrontation. This is it, this is my world. And but hey, you go to speak to someone that is hopefully an expert and will help you come through. And it sounds like, hey, they've helped you. Well, I don't know if they have. They haven't, but
they did.
Yeah, you've come out and you're smiling today, which is brilliant. And I like what you said. That it's not that that everything's been low, but university is life. I think people compartmentalize and you go to university, which is over here, and then you have life over here, but that doesn't actually work. It's basically, this is what happens, right? It's everything, right? Yeah. I guess that's life. Also school, and I guess school is a lot more structured, so you can separate the two out a lot more. But at university, there's no real separation, because like you said before, when you were finishing your classes at 12:30 a.m., you were working all day. You were doing, it's very, very different. So and that's an important message to anyone that's listening, that whatever tertiary you go to, don't compartmentalize. It is your life still carries on. It has not become part of your life. Beautiful. We've been speaking for almost an hour now, which is great. And the way we like to end our podcast, well, we call it the Boss of Knowledge, and we always ask our guests to give us one piece of knowledge they would like our listeners to think about that you have experienced for yourself. Anything that you'd like to share, Sonia? This is our hardest question that we ask.
It is so difficult because there's so many things. I'll tie this with a little bit of context. So when I decided to do a gap year, I had a lot of criticism from even like the staff at university who said that I was going to lose my way and that I was not going to come back to university afterwards. And obviously, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I think I will. Applications have just opened for masters, so I'm going to apply, which is awesome. But I think the best thing to know, this for me and hopefully for people listening, that if you need a break, you should do it. And you should do it for yourself and prove anyone else wrong who thinks that it's not the right choice, because in the end, even if you sit there for a whole year playing games or sitting on wins or whatever, it doesn't matter, because you gave yourself that time. You gave yourself that time to be just a normal person that doesn't have to function at high speed at university all the time, and maybe you'll come out better for it. I think that I already am growing and it's only May. So imagine where I'm going to be at when it's January and I start a new course and I feel refreshed and I don't feel like I've been sitting here all year doing study and I'm just trying to get to the end. Because I think when you start a new course and you've taken that time for yourself, you're actually going to be more excited about it and more ready to commit to something because you've allowed yourself to breathe and to take care of yourself.
That's beautiful. I mean, if we summarize that, it's okay to take a break to look after yourself. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's no right or wrong. And it's brilliant that you're doing that for yourself, but also to acknowledge that and to accept it and go, okay, cool, and not feel guilty. Some people
feeling
take
guilty
a
is so
break.
difficult.
Exactly, yeah. They take a break like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, because like you said, people are, oh, this is going to happen. But as you said, you have no idea. Nobody actually knows what's going to happen, and you might as well just live in the moment and do what you need to be doing right now. That's a fantastic piece of knowledge there, Sonia. And I think that is a great place for us to end our podcast today. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for telling us your story. It's really awesome to hear how you've gone from this is what I want to do to actually producing a production, and actually the values that you have for being a teacher. And I know, when you do get to that, you will be a fantastic teacher. So I'm envious of the young people that you're going to be teaching. I might have to join your class at some point.
Definitely.
I've still got to watch one of your plays. I keep missing them.
I have one this year. I'm actually directing a play. It's called 5 Lesbians Eating a Quiche.
Yep.
And I did a Fringe Festival show of it, and I'm redirecting it again in September. So
who knows?
When I have the dates for that.
Brilliant.
Always.
And when you have the dates, we'll chuck it up on a podcast so people can actually come along and support you as well, which is awesome. Thank you very much again to all our listeners. Thank you for listening in. As always, this podcast doesn't go anywhere without you, so please feel free to like, comment, and share. Thank you, everybody, and don't forget to keep filling your baskets with some sort of knowledge. Au revoir.